कांग्रेस सांसद शशि थरूर के नेतृत्व में सर्वदलीय प्रतिनिधिमंडल ग्रुप 5 ब्राजील पहुंचा है। यहां प्रतिनिधिमंडल ने संघीय गणराज्य ब्राजील के राष्ट्रपति के मुख्य सलाहकार सेल्सो अमोरिम से मुलाकात की। इस दौरान आतंकवाद के खिलाफ भारत का सहयोग देने और डटकर सामना करने को लेकर चर्चा हुई। ये चर्चा कितनी सकारात्मक रही, इसका अंदाजा आप इन प्रतिक्रियाओं से लगा सकते हैं। सुनिए।
First of all, it's always, even if the reasons may be sad ones, it's always a motive of satisfaction to receive our Indian friends, especially the chairman of the House on foreign relations, which my personal friend. So and of course we reiterated our condemnation of all acts of terrorism against the civilian population in India, and this was basically what we discussed. Thank you.
Oh, it was a wonderful meeting. I've known Ambassador Amorim, Minister Amorim, for 30 years now, since he came as Ambassador to the United Nations in the mid-90s. And we have worked closely together, and it was therefore an easy conversation because we communicate very well with each other. We had some important issues to discuss, and one of the reasons we asked you to leave the room is so we could be very frank with each other. But between friends, frankness is always in the positive sense, not in the other sense. we are not disagreeing with each other. We are finding lots of areas of agreement and cooperation. And, you know, there's such a good personal equation between the President of Brazil and our Prime Minister, between our two governments. We cooperate in so many forums. There is the BRICS, there is the G4 at the United Nations, there is the G20, there is IBSA. There's multiple forums where India and Brazil have areas of cooperation. And so for us it was an opportunity to expand their understanding of our recent challenges from across the border. And that's why we particularly wanted to see the Honourable Diplomatic Advisor to the President, who is also a former Foreign Minister, former Defence Minister, and a very senior figure in policy making in this country, because when he understands where we are coming from, then we know that Brazil will fully sympathise with what India is concerned about.
So, sir, your purpose of today is to explain the point of view of India in this conflict with Pakistan. Would Brazil issue any statement condemning terrorism further after today, after the talks today?
That's up to Brazil.
I'm not sure I heard exactly.
She's asking if Brazil would say anything to condemn terrorism unreservedly or whatever.
Well, we have said that continuously, and we even had a note, public note, condemning the acts of terrorism, and President Lula spoke personally with Prime Minister Modi, also in solidarity.
That's right.
Of course, the very difficult question is finding a solution, not only a solution that is just, but a solution that is also practical. That's the great difficulty we'll face, and that will require generations, but there is no doubt about our condemnation of terrorism and no doubt about our solidarity with the Indian people for what they suffered.
आप देख रहे हैं न्यूज UNI।
क्या? ठीक है, हम लोग अभी आ रहे हैं।
राजनीति के राज जनता तक पहुंचाना आसान नहीं है। खबरें के बाजार में बिना तमाशे के सच दिखाना आसान नहीं है, लेकिन अब सब कुछ होगा आसान। हम हैं न्यूज UNI।
न्यूज UNI हम जियो टीवी, ई बाबा,
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama
रॉक टीवी, और प्ले ऑन टीवी पर उपलब्ध हैं।
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम
अधिक अपडेट के लिए YouTube और Facebook पर फॉलो करें।
साल में एक
जो मुलाकात हुई सबका यही व्यू था कि दे डोंट सपोर्ट एनी टेररिज्म।
एक बात जो खुल के सामने आई और हर एक ने खुल के समर्थन किया कि जो भारत उग्रवाद की लड़ाई लड़ रहा है, अकेले भारत के लिए नहीं लड़ रहा, वो पूरी दुनिया के लिए लड़ रहा है।
कोई देश दुनिया में नहीं चाहता है कि आतंकवाद फले फूले, पाकिस्तान और उसके चिंटू मिंटू को छोड़कर।
5 देशों में हमें जाने का हमारा प्रोग्राम बना और मैं ये कहूंगा कि सभी जगह हर तरह के सरकारी ब्यूरोक्रेट से, पॉलिटिशियन से, बिजनेसमैन से, मीडिया से, थिंक टैंक से, सब लोगों से जो मुलाकात हुई सबका यही व्यू था कि दे डोंट सपोर्ट एनी टेररिज्म। और आप तो जानते हैं कि पूरी दुनिया जो है टेररिज्म का शिकार है इस वक्त। हमने उनको एक्सप्लेन किया कि भाई देखिए इस तरह से पिछले काफी समय से और पूरे देश की जो हमारी सिस्टम है उसको एकता है, जो फैब्रिक है उसको डिस्टर्ब करने की कोशिश की जा रही है। लेकिन सभी लोगों ने पूरा सपोर्ट किया और सब सहमत हुए कि ये जो है जो पहलगाम में था ये एक बहुत ही डास्टरली एक्ट था एंड वी डोंट सपोर्ट दिस एंड वी स्टैंड विद इंडिया ऑन दिस इश्यू। सो दिस वाज वेरी क्लियर। बहुत सक्सेसफुल रहा विजिट और इसमें कोई दो शक नहीं। आज स्पेनिश विदेश मंत्री से मुलाकात हुई, उनसे बात हुई। ही वॉज वेरी क्लियर। हमारे बोलने से पहले उन्होंने बोल दिया वी डोंट सपोर्ट दिस एंड वी स्टैंड विद यू। सो वेरी क्लियर। हमने अपना व्यू पॉइंट भी रखा। अगर भी ऐसे जो इंटरनेशनल फंड्स हैं, मॉनेटरी फंड है, जैसे IMF है, ये जो है टेररिस्ट स्टेट्स को जो फाइनेंस प्रोवाइड करते हैं, तो उसका डेवलपमेंट की बजाय उसका यूज जो है वो टेररिस्ट एक्टिविटीज के लिए होता है, टेररिस्ट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के लिए होता है, तो उसके ऊपर में लगाम लगनी चाहिए। आप क्योंकि ये सब लोग या तो यूरोपियन यूनियन के, ये तो सभी यूरोपियन यूनियन के मेंबर हैं, या तो इनमें से कुछ मेंबर जो है UNSC के आज मेंबर हैं या कुछ कल होने वाले हैं। तो सबको एक्सप्लेन किया कि भाई ये जो इस इशू के ऊपर में पूरी दुनिया को एकजुट होके और इसके खिलाफ लड़ाई लड़नी चाहिए।
सर, कुछ ऐसा संदेश या कुछ ऐसा सुझाव दिया गया आपके इस तमाम जो लॉ मेकर्स हैं 5 देशों के, उनसे मीटिंग हुई, आप लोगों से कोई सुझाव दिया गया या कुछ अलग उनकी कुछ क्वेश्चंस थे, कुछ क्वेरीज थे? नहीं,
जनरल क्वेश्चंस थे, जनरल क्वेरीज थी। आगे भाई ये कैसे और कैसे हुआ। हमने पहले ही अपने जब प्रेजेंटेशन हम लोग करते थे 5 के 5 मेंबर, तो सब एक्सप्लेन पहले ही कर देते थे, तो उनको ज्यादा कोई स्कोप रह नहीं जाता था पूछने का, क्योंकि हम पूरा कोऑर्डिनेटेड वे में सब बातों को उनके सामने रख रहे थे।
अनेकता में एकता हिंद की विशेषता, और
yes.
ये जो डेलीगेशन है साफ और एकदम क्लियर लाउड मैसेज जा रहा था, क्योंकि बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग था ये देखना कि आप सभी अलग अलग पार्टी का प्रतिनिधित्व करते हैं। यहाँ पर जितने भी MPs आए, एक रूलिंग पार्टी के थे, उसके अलावा आप RJD से, आम आदमी पार्टी से, समाजवादी पार्टी से, तमाम अलग अलग पार्टी के DMK की जो हेड वो लीड कर रही थी। तो जिस तरीके से कोई ऐसा आप लोगों को लगा कोई, क्योंकि वैसे हम लोग को पार्टी ओपिनियन जो पार्टी पॉलिटिक्स है वो अलग है, आप लोगों की आइडियोलॉजी भी अलग है, लेकिन यहाँ जब बात भारत की हुई तो आप लोग बिल्कुल एकजुट थे में आप लोग।
और ये स्थिति इनके लिए बड़ी यूनिक थी इन लोगों को जो है ये बात समझ में आने में थोड़ा सा समय लगा कि ये सभी एकजुट होकर एक बात बोल रहे हैं। इतना बड़ा देश है, सब पार्टीज का अपना अपना पॉलिटिकल एजेंडा है, अपनी सोच है, अपनी विचारधारा है, लेकिन इस इशू के ऊपर पूरा देश एकजुट है। और ये जो टेररिस्ट जो एक्टिविटी जो चल रही है, जैसे कि हमारी सरकार ने भी, प्रधानमंत्री जी ने भी कहा कि इनफ इज इनफ, अब और आगे अगर ऐसा कुछ होता है तो उसको हम टॉलरेट नहीं करेंगे। तो ये मैसेज सब इनको दिया गया।
आज जो हमारे 5 देशों की यात्रा थी, आज मैड्रिड में, स्पेन में, वो खत्म होने जा रही है। इस दौरान हम तकरीबन 25 डेलीगेशन से मिले, 5 देशों के अलग अलग तरीके से, जिसमें वहां के पार्लियामेंटेरियंस भी थे, वहां के एग्जीक्यूटिव जैसे फॉरेन मिनिस्टर साहब भी रहे, वहां की ट्रेड यूनियंस, इंडस्ट्री एसोसिएशंस भी रही, वहां के जो बड़े बड़े थिंक टैंक हैं वो सब रहे, वहां के जो लोग टेररिज्म से अफेक्टेड एसोसिएशंस बनी हैं वो लोग भी रहे, मीडिया के लोग भी रहे, और हमारा इंडिया का डायस्पोरा भी रहा 5 जगह में। एक बात जो खुल के सामने आई और हर एक ने खुल के समर्थन किया कि जो भारत उग्रवाद की लड़ाई लड़ रहा है, अकेले भारत के लिए नहीं लड़ रहा, वो पूरी दुनिया के लिए लड़ रहा है। जो भारत के प्रधानमंत्री उग्रवाद के खिलाफ ये लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं, वो पूरी दुनिया के लिए लड़ रहे हैं। जो भारत का ध्येय है वासुदेव कुटुंबकम, कि पूरा विश्व एक परिवार है और पूरा विश्व ग्रो करे, पूरे विश्व में शांति हो, और उसके लिए जो प्रधानमंत्री जी ये काम कर रहे हैं वो उनके साथ खड़े हुए हैं। और मुझे हम सबको देख के इतनी प्रसन्नता महसूस हुई कि जो भारत की लड़ाई है उसमें पूरा विश्व भारत के साथ खड़ा है, पूरा विश्व भारत के प्रधानमंत्री के साथ खड़ा है, पूरा विश्व भारत की जनता के साथ खड़ा हुआ है कि यही वो लोग हैं जो इस उग्रवाद की लड़ाई को समाप्त करने में दुनिया में अपना योगदान दे सकते हैं।
एक सवाल जो सबके जहन में है, लेकिन आप लोगों की जो एकता है वो बहुत ही मतलब कह सकते हैं कि बहुत यूनिक वो दिखाई दी, क्योंकि आपके डेलीगेशन में जितने भी एमपी सारे अलग अलग पार्टी से, आप खुद आम आदमी पार्टी से आते हैं, राष्ट्रीय जनता दल हो गया, समाजवादी पार्टी हो गया, निश्चित तौर पर रूलिंग पार्टी बीजेपी और डीएमके पार्टी की जो लीडर हैं कनिमोझी जी, वो लीड कर रही थी इसको। लेकिन एक भारत की जो ताकत है, क्योंकि आप लोगों के डिफरेंसेस हमेशा से दिखे हैं पार्लियामेंट में अलग अलग, और वैसे भी आप लोगों के अलग सुर होते हैं क्योंकि अलग अलग आइडियोलॉजी, अलग अलग पार्टी से आप लोग आते हैं, लेकिन यहाँ पर जो एकजुटता दिखी, कोई ऐसा मोमेंट, कुछ ऐसा अगर आप शेयर करना चाहें हमसे।
देखिए, जो भारत है, भारत की बहुत खूबियां हैं। एक जो सबसे बड़ी खूबी है विभिन्नता में एकता, यूनिटी इन डाइवर्सिटी। भारत में कितनी भाषाएं बोली जाती हैं, 30 के करीब तो भाषाएं बोली जाती हैं, उससे भी ज्यादा होंगी। कितने धर्म हैं, कितने संप्रदाय हैं, कितने समुदाय हैं, लेकिन कितनी पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज हैं। लेकिन जब देश की इज्जत की बात आती है, जब देश की रक्षा की बात आती है, जब देश के सम्मान की बात आती है, तो सब एक है। 140 करोड़ भारतीय एक है। ये बात हम पूरे तरीके से पूरी दुनिया को ये बता पाए। जो मेरी पार्टी का मेरा डेलीगेशन था, इसमें 5 पार्टीज के लोग हैं, जिसमें 4 ओपोजिशन के हैं, लीडर भी ओपोजिशन का है, रूलिंग पार्टी बीजेपी का सिर्फ 1 है। जब हम जाते थे देशों के राजनायकों से मिलने, देशों के मंत्रियों से मिलने, वहां के पार्लियामेंटेरियन से मिलने, वहां के थिंक टैंक से मिलने, सब हैरान होते थे कि अरे आप सब एक है। तो हमें लगता था ये क्या प्रश्न पूछ रहे हैं, भारत तो हमेशा एक रहा है, हमेशा एकजुट खड़ा है, भारत की एकता के लिए एकजुट खड़ा है, और ये पुरानी परंपरा है, और उसी परंपरा को जो हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी आगे लेके जा रहे हैं, हम उनके साथ खड़े हैं।
देश पाकिस्तान के आतंकवाद से जूझ रहा है और सरकार ने सर्वदलीय पार्लियामेंट्री कमेटी को भेजने का फैसला लिया, तो मैं आभारी हूं अपने राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष जी का, जिन्होंने मुझे चुना इस सर्वदलीय समिति के साथ आने के लिए। और मुझे संतोष इस बात का है कि जिस उद्देश्य को लेकर, जिस उम्मीद को लेकर आए, हम उसको पूरा करने में सक्षम रहे हैं। कोई ऐसा देश नहीं रहा जिसने आतंकवाद के खिलाफ हमारे साथ खड़ा होने की बात न किया हो। कोई देश दुनिया में नहीं चाहता है कि आतंकवाद फले फूले, पाकिस्तान और उसके चिंटू मिंटू को छोड़कर। अब सवाल ये है कि अगर पहले स्टेज को हमने पार कर लिया कि हर देश और वहां की सरकार कह रही है कि आतंकवाद की इस लड़ाई में हम आपके साथ हैं, तो उनका सहयोग लेकर पाकिस्तान को अलग थलग कैसे किया जाए, अब ये सरकार के ऊपर निर्भर करता है। जो हमारी लिमिटेड रिस्पांसिबिलिटी थी, उसको सारे हमारे प्रतिनिधिमंडल के साथियों ने मिलकर एक स्वर से पार्टी से ऊपर उठ के 140 करोड़ भारतीयों की आवाज को बुलंद किया है और हम समझाने में सफल रहे हैं। मैंने भी व्यक्तिगत रूप से जो मैं समझता हूं और मैं पहले से भी आर्टिकल लिखा करता था कि पाकिस्तान दुनिया का सबसे बड़े आतंकवादी गिरोह पाकिस्तान की सेना है। पाकिस्तान की सेना के डीएनए में ही आतंकवाद है। वो आतंकवाद को एक उद्योग के रूप में चलाती है। मैंने समझाया कि कैसे पाकिस्तान ही दुनिया की इकलौती सेना है जो दूध, चिप्स, सीमेंट, प्रॉपर्टी, दुनिया भर के सारे रोजगार करती है। तो पाकिस्तान की सेना के लिए भी एक रोजगार है। और 47 से लेके 71 तक की जब कहानी सुनाई, दुनिया की कोई ऐसी सेना नहीं रही होगी जो अपने ही लोगों को तभी पूरी पाकिस्तान में जिस तरह से किया, कश्मीर में किया, अफगानिस्तान में किया, लोगों को समझ में आया है। सबने ये तो जरूर कहा है कि हम कंडेम करते हैं, इस लड़ाई में हम भारत के साथ हैं और साथ किस हद तक उनका मिलेगा, उस साथ का किस हद तक हम सदुपयोग करेंगे और पाकिस्तान को अलग थलग करने में कितनी सफलता मिलेगी, इस सरकार के ऊपर निर्भर करता है।
सर, इस पूरी यात्रा के दौरान आप लोग लातविया गए, आप लोग ग्रीस गए, आप लोग रशिया गए, आप लोग स्लोवेनिया गए और ये स्पेन। अब पूरी यात्रा के दौरान कुछ ऐसा आप लोगों को उनके द्वारा जो लॉ मेकर्स है उनके द्वारा कोई ऐसा प्रश्न पूछा गया या सुझाव दिया गया आप लोगों की तरफ से कुछ विशेष?
देखिए, प्रश्न तो जो उनके कंफ्यूजन थे दूर किए। सुझाव हर देश यही देता था कि सीज फायर कंटिन्यू रहना चाहिए, आपस में बात करना चाहिए, हम मीडिएट कर देते हैं। तो हमने 2-3 बातें स्पष्ट किया कि तीसरा पक्ष का कोई रोल नहीं है, बायलैटरल इशू है। हमारा फंडामेंटल ये वो है कि बायलैटरल इशू, तीसरा पक्ष का रोल नहीं है। और जब बात करने की आप लोग सलाह देते हैं तो आपने भी देखा होगा कि मैंने हर जगह उनसे पूछा कि बात करें तो किससे करें। आप हिंदुस्तान में बात करना चाहते हैं तो वहाँ एक सरकार है, दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा लोकतांत्रिक देश है। एक ही साथ हम आजाद हुए, पाकिस्तान पैदा हुआ और हम आजाद हुए, और हम दुनिया का सबसे बड़े लोकतांत्रिक देश और दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा आतंकवादी देश। जब वहाँ सरकार ही नहीं, पपेट सरकार है, भुट्टो को जो भी कोई सिविलियन सरकार अगर सरकार दिखना चाहती है तो भुट्टो से लेकर इमरान खान का उदाहरण सामने दिया। तो अगर कोई सरकार तो होनी चाहिए। और जब तक आतंकवादी हमले होते रहेंगे, हिंदुस्तान की 140 करोड़ जनता का निर्णय है, किसी पार्टी और सरकार का निर्णय नहीं है। और हिंदुस्तान की 140 करोड़ जनता सेना के साथ खड़ी है।
आप देख रहे हैं न्यूज UNI।
Wellman Finance is a personal finance platform focused on empowering and serving millennials to take a well-informed decision while buying a financial product like home loan, car loan, business loan, personal loan, SME loans, insurance, etc. For further details, contact us.
न्यूज UNI हम जियो TV, ई बाबा,
कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम
रॉक TV, और प्ले ऑन TV पर उपलब्ध हैं।
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम हरे राम।
अधिक अपडेट के लिए YouTube और Facebook पर फॉलो करें।
साल में एक
Look, I think that the trips were all, touch wood, extremely successful. Guyana, of course, is a country that's already very friendly to us. 40% of the population is of Indian origin. We got an amazing welcome, met everybody, the president, the vice president, who is the former president and the head of the ruling party, the prime minister, 11 members of his cabinet, the speaker of the National Assembly. Everybody met us, were very warm, very receptive, very friendly, very positive. And so Guyana, in some ways, was the best place to start because it went so smoothly and so easily. Everyone settled into their roles as members of parliament on this delegation. Next was Panama. A little more of a challenge, but they were very receptive, and when we explained things to them, they were totally welcoming. One additional dimension in Panama is they're very keen on strengthening relations with India for reasons of economic development and cooperation, and in that area, definitely, we have a lot to offer, so they were particularly keen on hearing what we had to say. Colombia was a different kind of challenge because they had not been, unfortunately, very supportive. When Pahalgam happened, there was initially no statement. When Sindoor happened, to our surprise and shock, they had issued a statement expressing condolences to victims in Pakistan, who, as we all know, were terrorists, rather than the victims of terrorism in India. So we decided that that was a really important challenge. I took the opportunity of an opening day press conference to express my public disappointment with the statement. And explain that, if there is a need for us to explain our position better to the Colombians, we will do so. And by next morning, I'm very pleased to say when we met the acting foreign minister, she announced that they had withdrawn that statement and that they would speak much more positively of us, which she did. And then, of course, similar meetings with the president of the National Assembly and the sort of legislative infrastructure in Colombia also came through very, very positively, and we were able again to feel well received and well understood and well supported. Brazil was essentially very intense because we arrived on a Sunday when obviously not much was possible in terms of meetings. I had a couple of informal meetings with diplomats I knew previously, but today was a very full, intense day where we had starting off with the diplomatic advisor to the president, who's himself a longest-serving foreign minister in Brazilian history, former defense minister as well, very, very senior figure here. And I fortunately knew him 30 years ago when he was ambassador to the UN, and we've stayed in touch intermittently. So it was an easier conversation to have, and we gave the message of our expectation of Brazilian understanding and solidarity at this challenging time, which we got. Subsequently, we met with the heads of both the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and separately the head of the Lower House Foreign Relations Committee. The head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee is also the chairman of the India-Brazil Friendship Group, and he was very positive, understandably. The second discussion, we got good questions from them, and that too went very, very well. Then we had the vice president. We also met with the foreign minister, the acting foreign minister earlier, and the acting foreign minister of Colombia had been again very receptive to our message, heard us out, and accepted fully our side of what had happened, and said that Brazil would indeed take this forward. And then we met the vice president of the country, who is not just the number two in their system, unlike ours. The vice president also is a minister and is the Minister for Trade and Industry. He is a former governor of a state called Sao Paulo, the most populous state, where there is a tremendous amount of interest in Indian entrepreneurship and business. There's a big aluminium factory there and so on. And so again, very warm and friendly, and the conversation went on for about an hour, during which he ended up expressing completely strong and unconditional solidarity with India in its struggle against terrorism. So I must say, looking back on these 4 days, we have been blessed and fortunate that we had really successful meetings everywhere. The next stage is Washington, D.C. We had already been to New York on our way into Guyana. We stopped via New York in transit, and we went to the 9/11 memorial to victims of terrorism to show that we were coming on this crusade, as it were, against terrorism. And that was a good symbolic gesture to begin with. But we're not going back to New York. We're now only in Washington. And in Washington, we have meetings set up with the entire range of public opinion in Washington, government officials, legislators, that is senators and congressmen, various committees in the House and the Senate, think tanks who are very influential in Washington, particularly those focusing on foreign policy, media, and some public addresses like, for example, the National Press Club, where I'll be holding a press conference with some of my colleagues. There's going to be an event at the embassy, in fact, two events at the embassy, one for the Indian community on one evening, and another evening there's going to be an event which will actually showcase India's connection with the sort of influential opinion makers across Washington, some 80 to 100 guests. These are not mainly Indians. The Indians are mainly coming on the 4th. So it's a very interesting mix of people, and I will say that a mix of functions, I beg your pardon, and I will say that it's going to be fairly demanding. I have been asked to spend, though some of my colleagues will leave on the morning of Friday the 6th, I've been asked to spend the rest of the day giving 6 or 7 interviews, 7 or 8 interviews to individual American channels and broadcasters, podcasters, and so on. So that will also give us an opportunity to get our message out. It's a challenging environment. America is a very crowded media space. It's the world news generator. And for them, therefore, our story may not be top of the mind, but if we can get the attention of those who care about South Asia, those who care about India, those who care about terrorism, we can get our message across very, very easily.
So the 3 countries that you recently were part of the United Nations Security Council,
right,
non-permanent member, and you will be heading to USA.
3 out of the 4. That is Panama, Guyana, and Colombia.
Now you will be heading to USA, which is a permanent member
Correct.
of the United Nations Security Council. How important does it become for India to give a message to such countries?
No, so the US is important to us at all levels because, frankly, the Security Council, in a sense, is a small part of our relationship with the US, which is huge, whether it comes to trade, whether it comes to defense, whether it comes to intelligence sharing, whether it comes to our participation in the Quad, in the G20. There are just so many avenues in which we cooperate with the US, and then there is the phenomenally important Indian-American community. Some 4 to 5 million people of Indian descent in America, who are the largest, most successful ethnic group when it comes to median income and so on. This is a very, very important community, and for us, we will do our very best, obviously, to get our message out to whoever in the US is prepared to listen. It's no accident that the Pakistanis have also sent a delegation abroad, but they're not going to as many countries as the Indian delegations are. They're focusing on what they consider a few key capitals, namely Washington, Brussels, London. That seems to be the thrust of the Pakistani effort. We have gone to all those capitals and more. But when I say we, I don't mean just me, all the other MP delegations. But in Washington, we'll have the interesting phenomenon of the Pakistani delegation in America on almost exactly the same dates. They've been in New York, I believe, today and tomorrow they'll be in New York. Thereafter, yesterday and today, I beg your pardon, in New York. Tomorrow onwards, they will be in Washington while we are in Washington on the same dates. So there's going to be some, perhaps, increase in interest because of the fact there are 2 dueling delegations, as it were, in the same city.
So since this India-Pakistan war, United States is one country that has always been on headlines because of Donald Trump, who has been claiming a mediation or getting a ceasefire between the 2 countries. During our engagements there, will this come up?
How do I know what will come up, Ayushi? We'll have to wait and see what questions people ask. Look, we have enormous respect for the American presidency, and we will speak with that respect in mind. But broadly speaking, our understanding is a bit different. We had consistently said from the very beginning on May 7th that we are not interested in prolonging conflict. This is not the opening salvo in some sort of war. All it is retribution against the terrorists, period. If Pakistan had not reacted, we would not have reacted. That would have been the end of that. Pakistan chose to react with shelling, then we reacted to the Pakistan reaction. And throughout every day, the message was the same from India to everybody who would listen. If they hit, we'll hit. If they stop, we'll stop. We don't want war. We want to focus on our growth and development. This message was given to everybody. Our foreign minister was getting calls from other foreign ministers. He was saying the same thing. So in that sense, no one needed to persuade us to stop. We had already said stop. So if there was any persuasion by the American president or his senior officials, it would have been persuasion of the Pakistanis. They would have had to be persuaded. We don't need to be persuaded because we don't want war. We want to focus on development. That's the basic message.
So Western media seemed to have ignored India's proof of damage to Pakistani assets and relied on Pakistani military briefings. What will you say on Western media hypocrisy, who even called terrorists as gunmen? And since you are going to give interviews there, are you going to change?
Let's wait and see till I actually encounter the Western media rather than telling the Indian media first. But thank you, Ayushi, for the question. I'm forewarned.
So last question. Washington, D.C. also holds headquarters of big financial institutions like World Bank
and IMF. Yeah.
World Bank recently unveiled a $40 billion long-term financial support to Pakistan, and IMF also bailed out recently. What is your assessment on that?
See, we don't begrudge any country its development. If the money is to be spent truly on getting people out of poverty or helping deal with development issues, why would we object? We are humane. We believe in all the sort of well-being of the poorest of the poor in any country. But if that money simply enables Pakistan to divert more resources to supporting terrorism, to arming themselves to attack us, and so on, then it would be most unfortunate. And I hope that the World Bank and the IMF, both of which are bodies in which India does have some influence, I hope they will both be told by our diplomats there that it is extremely important to have complete safeguards to ensure that this money is only spent the way it's supposed to be spent. Money is, after all, fungible, right? Let's say you were going to spend 10 rupees on defense and somebody comes and gives you 20. You will happily take 10 and put the other 10 to defense and save yourself the first 10. This is the kind of human nature. So any lender must take adequate precautions to ensure that their money is only spent for the purposes for which it is being given. Otherwise, frankly, we would not object normally to development assistance per se. Our objection is to the misuse of financial freedoms made possible by this assistance.
So there was also a terror attack in USA in border. What will you say on that?
Well, we immediately reacted. As soon as we saw the reports, the delegation I consulted and I issued a tweet, which they've all retweeted, saying that we express shock and condemn the terrorist attack. We were relieved there was no loss of life. And we endorsed the Secretary of State's message, which is that he said terrorism has no place in our country, and that terrorism has no place in either his country or ours. And we don't believe that terrorism should have any place in any civilized nation. And that message is something we will underscore when we get to America.
आप देख रहे हैं न्यूज UNI।
Wellbank Finance is a personal finance platform focused on empowering and serving millennials to take a well-informed decision while buying a financial product like home loan, personal loan, business loan, loan against property, credit card, car loan, SME loan, insurance, etc.
न्यूज UNI हम जियो टीवी, ई बाबा,
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama
रॉक टीवी, और प्ले ऑन टीवी पर उपलब्ध हैं।
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama।
अधिक अपडेट के लिए YouTube और Facebook पर फॉलो करें।
साल में एक we can have different ideologies, we come from different political backgrounds, and in parliament we can have heated arguments, But when it comes to the case of India, we stand as one. We can be, people of India. We can be chosen representatives, whoever it is. We stand together is what the message we brought, and we go back with that message. One moment, I think every moment this delegation met people. It was a very reassuring thing that India comes together as one. The Indian communities we've been meeting, across the countries have also been very positive, and they had a lot of, emotional connect with India, and they feel very strongly wronged by these terrorist acts, and they stand with India solidly. We could see it in all the places we visited, and they stand very strongly with India as a nation.
Last question, as the head of the delegation, what was your experience like leading a team of MPs from different political parties in India's fight against terrorism? Also, can you share a memorable moment where the delegation unity and commitment to India's interests stood out despite the different party opinion?
No, I think there's just not one moment. I think every moment this delegation met people. It was a very reassuring thing that India comes together as one. When we can have our issues, we can have different ideologies, we come from different political backgrounds, and in parliament we can have heated arguments. But when it comes to the case of India, we stand as one. We can be, people of India. We can be chosen representatives, whoever it is. We stand together is what the message we brought, and we go back with that message.
आप देख रहे हैं न्यूज UNI।
Wellman Finance is a personal finance platform focused on empowering and serving millennials to take a well-informed decision while buying a financial product like home loan, personal loan, business loan, loan against property, credit card, car loan, SME loan, insurance, etc.
न्यूज UNI हम जियो टीवी, ई बाबा,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
रॉक टीवी, और प्ले ऑन टीवी पर उपलब्ध हैं।
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama।
अधिक अपडेट के लिए YouTube और Facebook पर फॉलो करें।
साल में एक
If Pakistan had not chosen to expand the conflict, we would not have hit Pakistani military facilities. We are not looking for war. We are looking only to send a message to terrorists. And that country, if it's not willing to curb them, will have to face the consequences. The reason we have come is very much to seek greater sympathy and understanding on the part of our friends. And also countries that are not necessarily our friends, but you are in the high friends category, for our situation in recent months. In particular, the really, really serious attack on our country by terrorists in Kashmir, in a place called Pahalgam, on the 22nd of April. I must say that we saw the statement by Brazil. We were also very touched by President Lula telephoning our Prime Minister personally to express his concern and condolences. But as you know, in the couple of weeks that followed, absolutely no action was taken to bring the perpetrators to heel or even to look for them in Pakistan. We have identified 4 of them that crossed over from the other side, but there's absolutely no effort made. So finally the government decided it had to send a very strong message. And this is why on the 7th of May, India struck 9 terrorist bases. And I say this very carefully. You know, Celso, from your years at the United Nations, and I think this is the first time I'm seeing you in an Indian capacity. I've always met you as a UN official. Let me say that here we are looking at organizations listed by the 1267 Committee at the UN. These are organizations whose terrorist standing is not in doubt. They're also on the terrorist designate list of the United States government. And their headquarters, base camps.
In the United Nations also.
Yes, in the sanctions, Terrorist Sanctions Committee, 1267 Committee. So I just wanted to say that we chose targets very carefully where every one of them was clearly and explicitly linked to, or the base of, or the training camp of one of these proscribed organizations. Second, we took great care to do so at night, 1:05 to 1:30 in the morning, to minimize any risk of collateral damage, civilians and so on. Normal life was, everyone should be asleep at that time. And then we also explicitly avoided any Pakistani government target, any civilian target, and any military target. So the whole idea was to signal we are not trying to start a war, we are just conducting retribution for an act of terror, which was a really vile act. 26 people killed. They singled out the men on the basis of their religion. They shot them dead in front of their wives and children. It was really horrendous. And it was meant, of course, to do the maximum possible damage to India, to disrupt the Kashmiri economy, which was booming, to end the prospects of tourism flourishing in Kashmir. Tourism had gone up by 100% in the preceding 12 months, to also perhaps create a communal backlash in India, because these people said, are you Hindu? Bang. Can you recite the first verse of the Quran? Then we spare you. And in fact, they spared one man because he could recite. And this was clearly intended to send the message, it is our religion that is killing you. And so the hope was that there would be a backlash back in India. And the Indian people, thank God, had the maturity to stay united.
No,
absolutely. Nothing like that. There were heightened tensions for maybe 24 hours, some minor incidents in university campuses and so on, but thereafter the whole country rallied behind. And in fact, once the operation started, you would be so impressed to see the strength of opinion of all sections. And in fact, I'm proud to say that every one of our parliamentary delegations going around the world has this diversity of religion I mentioned. Mr. Sarfraz Ahmed is from the Muslim community, is strongly, solidly with us. We've had others leading voices from the Muslim community. And of course, the Kashmiri people, the Kashmiri chief minister, who was elected in an election with a 64% turnout quite recently. He has been really exemplary in speaking up for India and against this hateful terrorism. But you see, Celso, you understand these phenomena so well. I don't want to preach to somebody as knowledgeable as you are. But this is a particularly troubling matter because it is about the use of terrorism as an instrument of state policy. You know, when we struck those terror bases on the 7th, as I said, every one of those bases identified linked to terror. Next morning, there is a funeral at one of the sites, conducted by a person who's also named in the committee, Hafiz Abdul Rauf, who's an elite figure named in the United Nations Sanctions Committee. He is conducting the funeral, and look who's attending. Uniformed officers of the police and military of Pakistan. These are all military officers, and there are a couple of police people, senior officials. This is what is going on in Pakistan. This organization, the LET, has created this front called the Resistance Front, so-called. We have been reporting about the Resistance Front to the UN Sanctions Committee time after time. 3 times we've already given details. They claimed credit for the terrorist killings. The next day they repeated that claim. And then when people realized the gravity of it, their handlers in Pakistan got them to delete the claim. But the claim is on record for a full 24 hours. And what is deeply disquieting is when India encouraged our friends on the Security Council to mention the resistance front in the press statement that the Security Council issued. The Pakistan government, I'm sorry to say with the support of your friends in China, took out the name. So there is not even a reference to the organization. Yes, yes, of course, and we are also your friends. But we are not on the council. These guys are, and neither are you these days, which is our loss. We have to change that situation, sir. Both of us should be on the council together on a more durable basis. But to come back to the story, so we conducted this. The Pakistanis were told very clearly, and the world was told, this is a retribution, not the beginning of a war. If you leave this alone, we will leave you alone. Pakistan instead chose to react with disproportionate artillery shelling on civilian areas. They killed 19 civilians in one district alone, on Poonch in Kashmir.
The Pakistani
Army, this time official Pakistani army attacked us. They killed 19 civilians. They hit a Sikh temple, a Gurudwara. They hit a convent, the convent of the Carmelites of Mother Mary. They killed civilians in homes. They killed traffic on the streets. It was absolutely shocking. At that point, we also retaliated. There was no declaration of war, but we hit them back very hard. The day after that, they sent drones and missiles. Over 400 drones came across our border, and they fired missiles. I'm proud to say our air defenses proved equal to the task. We, in turn, on the night of the 9th, 10th of May, hit 11 Pakistani military targets. These were airfields of the Pakistani Air Force.
It was when, more or less.
Well, we
to keep the calendar, this is more or less.
So the whole thing is 88 hours. The entire conflict was 88 hours. Because once we hit these airfields, and there are satellite pictures, not just from us, but commercially available satellite pictures, showing craters in the main airfields of the Pakistan Air Force, after that they asked for peace. They said, let's stop firing. There was a call. You see, the hotline between the two Directors General of Military Operations is always open. So their Director General called ours in the morning of the 10th of May, afternoon at 3:30, a formal call was arranged. They proposed cessation of firing at 5 p.m. We agreed instantly. And I stress this agreed instantly point because our line had throughout been, we don't want a war. Our line had throughout been that we, as India, are focused on our growth and development. We have no wish to do anything but promote the prosperity and well-being of our people. We do not want to be distracted by conflict and terrorism and war. But you cannot think that you people can walk across your border and kill us and go away with impunity. So the message was, if they do that, there will be reprisals. There will be a price to pay. But thereafter, we are not interested in a conflict against the whole Pakistani nation and people with whom we have no quarrel. Now, what happened as soon as this was proposed was that we stopped, and though for a couple of hours there were some people on the other side who violated the agreement, it subsided very quickly, and now we have 3 weeks of pretty much calm on the border. So the story is to that degree, for the moment, over. It's a story of an 88-hour conflict. But the larger lessons are what I wanted to talk to you about, and through you, I hope you will share our Prime Minister's concerns with President Lula, because the truth is that we really need understanding from our friends here. This is not some random incident. This is not some random incident, also. This is very, very seriously part of an organized effort by elements within Pakistan to systematically undermine the Indian state. It has begun at the end of the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan, when you had a whole bunch of mujahideen trained and ready to be unleashed somewhere with no place to go because the Soviets had left, so they turned them towards India and Kashmir. And from 1989 onwards, we have suffered repeated attacks. You yourself were in the UN when some of them happened. You were also very much aware, I know, both as Foreign Minister and as Defense Minister, of incidents including the Mumbai attack in 2008, when 170 people were killed. 2008. But it was 170 people killed, and India chose not to do this, but to take the peaceful route. because the evidence was all available. Dossiers were compiled. One of the terrorists was captured alive. His home address in Pakistan was known. Everything was identified. Western intelligence agencies, not just ours, had recorded the chilling voice of that killer in Pakistan, the handler, giving minute-by-minute instructions to the terrorists to shoot and kill each of their victims. While the killing was going on, the operation was being directed from Pakistan. All this evidence was collected. And we thought, the government, which was at that point my party's government, Dr. Manmohan Singh's government, thought that this convincing dossier will result in the end of Pakistani terrorism, that the whole world will tell Pakistan not acceptable, so on and so forth. I'm sorry to say it didn't happen. Full dossiers were given. Pakistan was put on the grey list of the Financial Action Task Force. Not one person has been prosecuted, let alone convicted. Not one. They made a token gesture of arresting one or two of the names that we had provided, which were associated with the dispatch of this mission. The most prominent of them was a character who has since fathered children while he is ostensibly under arrest. Who has since fathered children while he is ostensibly under arrest. That is the kind of arrest that he is enjoying. It's a joke. The Pakistanis are not serious about terrorism. And this is why, time after, the Pakistanis say, let us have a neutral investigation. There could have been no more neutral investigation than the one of 2008. Practically half a dozen Western intelligence agencies had material that was shared and that was collectively presented to the Pakistanis. We said, here is all the material you need to prosecute these people and convict them in your courts. They gave one excuse after the other. But what is worse, sir, is the terrorist attacks continued. There was one serious attempt made by this Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, to make peace with Pakistan, which was on Christmas of December 2015, 7 years after Mumbai. He traveled to Pakistan for the birthday celebrations of the then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, whose granddaughter was also getting married on the same day, so he attended both. There was a lot of warmth expressed on both sides. It was a very spontaneous gesture by the Prime Minister, not a long-planned visit. And yet, within 3 weeks, we had a Pakistani attack on an Indian airbase called Pathankot. At that point, the Prime Minister invited the Pakistanis to join the investigation. I say all this because the Pakistanis are again telling everybody, let's have a joint investigation. We did a joint investigation of Pathankot. And what happened? They said, they went back to Pakistan and they said, the Indians did it to themselves. That was the last straw. I mean, the betrayal, the sense of frustration in Delhi has to be imagined. You are talking to a government that on the one hand is friendly to you, but it is unable to control the elements within its own system that go out and kill with impunity. Mumbai was bad enough, but the continuing series of attacks after that. So after this 2015 betrayal, the government decided they would now no longer take this lying down. There would be public retaliation, and it would be physical, kinetic retaliation. So 2015 September, there was an attack in a place called Uri on the line of control with Kashmir. We sent a surgical strike right across the line of control, hit some people very hard there. 2019, January, there was a suicide bombing by a terrorist from Pakistan. 40 people killed in Kashmir. This time we conducted an airstrike in their northwestern province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, a place called Balakot. The purpose again was to show the old restraints will no longer be observed. There will now be open action. And this attack was serious enough to warrant hitting Pakistan's heartland, but only terrorist sites initially. And I want to say once again, if Pakistan had not chosen to expand the conflict, we would not have hit Pakistani military facilities. Our message is consistent. We are not looking for war. We are looking only to send a message to terrorists. But through them, we want a message to be heard by those who are providing them safe haven, by those who are financing them, training them, equipping them, guiding them, and sending them across the border. And those are people in Pakistan in very, quote-unquote, responsible positions who are doing this. Whether they're under the control of the civilian government is another matter. We will not speculate on that. But they are still happening. They are still coming from that country. And that country, if it's not willing to curb them, will have to face the consequences. That is precisely where we are, Silso, and I seek your understanding for this.
आप देख रहे हैं न्यूज UNI।
क्या? ठीक है, हम लोग अभी आ रहे हैं।
राजनीति के राज जनता तक पहुंचाना आसान नहीं है। खबरें के बाजार में बिना तमाशे के सच दिखाना आसान नहीं है, लेकिन अब सब कुछ होगा आसान। हम हैं न्यूज UNI।
न्यूज UNI हम जियो टीवी, ई बाबा,
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम
रॉक टीवी, और प्ले ऑन टीवी पर उपलब्ध हैं।
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम
अधिक अपडेट के लिए YouTube और Facebook पर फॉलो करें।
साल में एक